Hey guys, Crow Cooper here with On the Black, and I'm joined tonight by Brian Erni, who is a contributor of Mets Blog. What's going on, Brian?
Hey, Carl, what's going on?
Doing good. It's good to finally meet you. We've chatted a lot through Twitter, so good to do this video, and maybe we'll meet one day in person. That would be even better.
Absolutely.
So before we get started, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and some of the work you're doing over at Mets Blog as well?
Sure. Okay. Well, in about April, I remember it was one of my first post game was the infamous double play, the bunt double play, that 4-3 game against the Astros, right before they started turning it around a little bit. I started doing the post games for a couple months. I was sort of on the post games every night, and then we got Vinny and Mike Nichols back, and we sort of formed the nice. Matt set out a nice little schedule for Team Mets Blog, as we call it.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm working post games a couple nights a week, and contributing an About Last Night, which is pretty much a recap post on either pitcher performance or position player performance, usually about every day. Mike Barron usually picks me up once or twice, and it's been great. You know, it's an awesome opportunity, and just to get to write on that kind of platform is unbelievable for me.
Yeah, true, definitely. And how did you meet Matt? Where does your history go back with Matt Cerrone?
You know, I met Matt for the first time in March. So in October of last year, I remember he put out sort of an open call for a couple writers. And he said, you know, it might not be opinion right away. It might just be, you know, quick news bits. And, you know, he had him and his wife had their first child, you know, this spring. So that this summer, really. So he was sort of looking to take a step back for a little while and needed some guys to contribute. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it and I'm saying, you know, should I do it? You know, and my wife, my fiance at the time, she said, what do you have to lose? So I said, yeah, you know what? You're right. And Matt, I sent the application, and a couple days later I heard from Matt. And I guess throughout the off season, we did a little test blogging and then a couple of writing samples. Really kind of got into it around January. I remember my test blogging day was the day that the story broke about the Wilpons and that they were looking to sell part of the team, and I was like, oh geez, being thrown right into the fire,
right into the fire.
So Matt and I finally met up in about March or April in the city, and he's a great guy. You know, just couldn't be a nicer guy. So
cool, good stuff. Now today, some news came out that the Mets asked Mike Pelfrey if he wanted to close for the Mets. Now, I'm not sure your thoughts on it. You know, I'm not a fan of Mike Pelfrey in the closer role. You know, I think you got to be mentally tough to be in that closer position, and I don't know if he's the right guy for that. I mean, what were your thoughts on that when you heard that?
You know, I saw it and I kind of chuckled because, listen, Mike's career has been so, for a lack of a better term, weird, that, you know, it's the big question, obviously, for all the fans is, does this guy have the mental makeup?
Right.
And, you know, I mean, is that the kind of guy you want to close? I'm not 100% sure, you know. I think he has good stuff. I think sometimes he can suffer from the overexposure factor, especially in division. You know, you see him, it always seems, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it always seems like the Marlins and the, you know, every once in a while the Nats will get to him. And I know he's particularly struggled in the division on the road this year. So maybe once off, you know, come in, throw as hard as he can, throw that sinker, get a big double play ball. Who knows? Maybe he'd be well suited for it. But I think that I think his future is a little iffy right now. I mean, I know that everybody's talking about him being a potential non-tender candidate, and you know, as far as where the funds are allocated this year, it's going to be tough. It's going to, you know, if it comes down to maybe throwing that $5-6 million to Jose Reyes' contract, you know, what does Sandy Alderson do? I wouldn't want to be in his position.
Yeah, I was talking to someone else about that the other night, and he definitely has a tough off season ahead of him, because I think there are more question marks than answers on this roster right now.
Yeah,
and you know, starting pitching to me needs to be a priority, but there isn't many top-notch starters on the free agent market this year. Right. So does he work trades, and how does all that work? And you know, not to mention, we've seen how bad the bullpen desperately needs some help lately as well too. So
you are not kidding.
Yeah.
It's been frustrating. I wrote something quickly the other day about I'm sort of ready now for the Bobby Parnell kind of era, the Pedro Beato, and it's at that point where Jason Isringhausen's great, and if you look at where he's come from, he was practically on the fringe of retirement to 300 saves, and it's been such a great ride for Izzy this year. But now is the time where we start finding out what we have ahead, and I know that Terry doesn't want to give up, and he wants to make sure this momentum from there are a lot of good feelings from this year.
Yeah,
he wants to make sure they carry over, and I can't blame him for that. But I think now it's time to start experimenting, and especially with closers, especially with the bullpen. It's one of those things that Heath Bell is a perfect example. I talk about this all the time. It's like that's a guy that truly opportunity met talent at the right time in San Diego. In New York, it just wasn't going to happen. And you see what he's become. So I think it's time to start seeing what we have in some of these younger arms.
Yeah, I agree with you. And speaking of seeing what we have in younger arms and players, we're going to be expanding the roster pretty soon. September call-ups are coming. Anyone in the Mets farm system, granted, half of Buffalo's team's already here, but anyone left in the Mets farm system that maybe you're looking to see if they get called up and want to see what they do maybe over the last month of the season?
Yeah, Chris Schwinden is somebody that I've sort of had my eye on all year, and I know a couple of people on Twitter have sort of expressed the same thing. They're kind of anxious for that call-up. Adam Rubin said the other day that he's sort of on the short list for a September call-up, so that's cool. I want to see. I want to see him see maybe what he has. Somebody, and I forget who it was, but on Twitter today said, the real lack in the Mets bullpen in the last 5-6 years since Darren Oliver left is that long man. That guy that, it's 6-0 in the third inning, throw him to the Wolves and see what happens. And so often we saw Oliver keep them in games. And I'd be interested to see if Schwinden can be that kind of guy maybe next year and moving forward. Obviously, the cult icon, Val Pascucci is having another monster year, and I wouldn't be doing my SNY brethren any favors if I didn't mention him. So, and you never know. I know a guy that I actually am really interested in, just from a personal standpoint, is Miguel Batista. Okay. I thought that was kind of a shrewd pickup by Sandy Alderson when the Cardinals released him, and I don't know. This is a guy. I mean, I know he's older, but he's had a lot of success at the major league level. You never know. You never know when that guy is going to come around that can sort of have that dream season and play a really useful role. So that's somebody, at least on the pitching front, that I'm sort of interested to see how much he has left.
Gotcha. Now let's talk about Lucas Duda a little bit here. I personally would like to see him more in right field at this point in time, but I understand why he's been playing first base a lot. We really don't have anyone else there, but his power is starting to come around lately. What are your thoughts on Duda next year? Can he be the Mets right fielder of the future? How do you feel about him right now?
I think if you would have asked me this a month ago, my answer would have been very, very different. I can't even believe that I'm saying this, but I'm super excited about Lucas Duda right now. I think that, Gary Cohen brought up a great point. He has a sense of timing. The hits coming for Lucas, and we saw that in the Padres game. We saw that even yesterday, even though they didn't win to a little bit of a lesser extent. We've seen, him really start to get around on pitches, start to know the strike zone. I don't know. Could this guy be an everyday right fielder next year? Maybe, and I'm willing to take that gamble. I understand too. I know that sort of the situation of the injuries have kind of forced him to first base for the time being, but and Nick Evans having a really tough year is not helping. Let's face it. I mean that's really one of the things that has sort of been the if Evans was sort of being the linchpin right there and was performing, it'd be nice if, you could say, all right, we'll put Nick at first base. He seems to be handling, lefties well, and I know that's sort of the plan moving forward. But I don't know. It looks so far so good. I mean, 2010, it was sort of, all right, is this going to be one of these one-off things? September call-up has a couple nice games. And then this year, I think he's really developed quite nicely. So I'm going to say that barring any significant unforeseen free agent signings, changes, I have to think that maybe this guy's going to be in right field every day. And why not? You know, just like opportunity sometimes has to meet talent. And if the opportunity's there, who knows? This guy could be a 25, 30 home run guy at the major league level, in which case might pick up a little bit of the Jason Bay slot. So.
Yeah, that definitely would be nice. But no, I agree with you. A month ago, I think my answer would have been different. But right now, you know, I tweeted right before we came online that I think we're watching Duda grow up right before our eyes.
Yeah.
His first at bat against Cliff Lee tonight, very nice at bat. Ended up getting a base hit out to right field, and it's nice to see him do that off of a very tough lefty. So hopefully he'll continue to progress over the next month or so, off season next year, and I think he has a shot at being the right fielder of the future for this team.
Yeah, I would agree, and that's a good point against Cliff Lee, especially a guy who changes speeds so well on especially on the outside part of the plate. You know, you sort of think about what lefties have to go through against left-handed pitching, and
right.
They're constantly yanking that, you know, that front side comes out, and you know, it's such a hard thing to do is hit those pitches on the outside part of the plate, and where if you can time that change up, a Cliff Lee change up, and drive it out to right field, I think that's a really good sign.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, Brian, I want to thank you for joining me for a little bit tonight. For those of you watching, be sure to check Brian out over at Mets Blog. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime, Carl.
All righty.